Okay, so Iago, continuing to build tension, won't tell Othello what he's thinking. And he says it in a really serious way, like, I really don't have to tell you. He says, I want you to tell me the worst thing you're thinking. And Iago says, pardon me, even though I am bound to every act of duty, I am not bound to that all slaves are free to. Utter my thoughts will say they are vile and false. Um, and that's the place wherein to foul, and where's the place wherein to foul things sometimes intrude not? Who has a breast so pure, but some uncleanly apprehensions keeps leets and law days and sessions sit with meditations lawful. So Iago says, listen, I don't have to tell, look, slaves may have to, even a slave may have to work for a master. Doesn't have to tell him what he's thinking, right? Your brain, your ideas are your own, and you can't be forced to share them. And with a slave, what you're forcing people to do is physical labor, but you can't force someone to tell you what they're thinking. And Iago says, no, I'm not going to do it. And he gives a really good reason, a really legitimately good reason why he's not going to tell him. He says, listen, sometimes, he says, look, who has so pure a breast that foul things intrude not, right? Who has a brain so pure they don't think of bad things sometimes? And then he says, what if I think of a bad thing and I tell you and it's not true? Well, that could do a lot of damage. And so I don't want to tell you every bad thing that pops into my head. But we all do this. Is you have bad thoughts all the time. And then and people, we have an idea sometimes in society that, like, well, tell me what you're thinking. You got to free yourself of your thoughts. If you're worried about something, talking about it will make it feel better. I think a lot of times that's true, but not all the time. Because again, who has a mind or a breast so pure that bad thoughts don't come? And also, sharing those bad thoughts might cause damage. So here, I'll give you a simple example from my own life. But like, every time I'm on an airplane, every couple of minutes I think, is a plane gonna crash and I'm gonna die? Like, I don't like airplanes that much. They stress me out, and I'm worried on the plane that I'm like, I wonder if the plane's gonna crash and I'm gonna die right in the next 5 minutes. If I hear like a noise in the plane, I'm like, I wonder if the wing fell off and we're gonna die. And then my wife sitting in the seat next to me, she says, "What are you thinking about?" And I go, "Nothing," because it would be, I shouldn't tell her every time I think the plane's gonna crash. That would be crazy. Um, and so and so it's a perfectly reasonable thing that Iago says, which is, I'm not going to tell you every terrible thought that's in my head. Um, he says I am allowed to keep that to myself. Which, one of the amazing things about Iago is that's a good point. He's right, but he's using something that is true and right for evil. That's irony. That's contrast. All right, cool. Here we go. Um, Right, all right, cool. So Othello says, thou dost conspire against thy friend Iago, if thou thinks him wronged and makest his ear a stranger to thy thoughts, right? He says, you're not being a good friend if you think something bad has happened, you don't tell me about it. And he says, I do beseech you, please, though I perchance am vicious in my guests. So he says, listen, maybe I think evil thoughts, and maybe, I don't want to think something bad and tell you about it and cause trouble. Again, Iago's reluctance to tell Othello what's going on makes it all the more believable, because he's constantly like, oh, I don't know if it's true, I don't want to worry you. And you ever had your mom call you and like leave a message and be like, call me, we need to talk, but she doesn't say what it's about? Like, that's not, like, that's so stressful to get. And then sometimes like, this happens to students all the time. So one time I came to class and I said to a student, listen, after class, let me talk to you outside. Um, and the student spent the 75 minutes of class being incredibly stressed out, by what they did wrong that I was mad at them about. And then I actually had something nice to tell them. I had like good news, about how well they did on their essay. And I wanted to ask a question. Can I put the essay in my syllabus? Because I thought it was so excellent. But if you don't tell people what you're thinking, it makes them think the worst. And this is the position that Othello is in now. So Iago says, listen, I'm not going to tell you. By the way, notice this is a long time. He still hasn't said what's going on. This started coming up on page 15, and now we're on page 17, and Iago still has not told him. As I confess, it is my nature's plague to spy into abuses. He says, listen, I'm often thinking that. Iago says, listen, it's my fault. I often have these bad thoughts, and I don't necessarily want to tell you what they are. And then he slips in the word. He says, it's often in my nature to spy abuses, and oft my jealousy shapes faults that are not. And he says, oftentimes when I'm jealous, I'll think things that are real. Now, notice, he didn't say Othello should be jealous. He says, sometimes I get jealous. Um, and it puts thoughts in my head that aren't real, and so I don't want to tell you, because what if you get jealous about something and it puts thoughts in your heads that aren't real? But you see what he's done is he the word when he brings up the word jealousy. That's the first hint as to what he might be talking about. Because right now, I mean, Othello could have thought maybe Cassio's embezzling money, or maybe he's a child murderer or something. But jealousy, and notice the first use of the word is Iago says, I'm often jealous, and when I'm jealous, I see things that aren't there. I don't want to do that to you. The word jealousy appears ironically applied to Iago, not Othello, because it allows him to bring something uncomfortable up but not associate it with Othello immediately. Iago is so sneaky. He says that your wisdom, from one that so imperfectly conceits, I have these bad ideas and it could be wrong, would take no notice or build yourself a trouble out of this scattering and unsure observance. Like, I don't want to, he says, sometimes I get jealous thinking about crazy things. I don't want to make you like that. If it were not for your quiet, nor your good, nor my manhood, honesty, and wisdom to let you know my thoughts. He says, in conclusion, I don't think I should tell you what I'm thinking, because what if I sometimes have these jealous, unhappy thoughts? I don't want to give them to you. But Othello, of course, can't let it go. What dost thou mean? Right? And then Iago gives another hilarious speech here. He says, good name in man and woman, dear my lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Again, this is a metaphor, right? The good name, meaning a good reputation, is like a jewel. It's a valuable thing. He says, who steals my purse steals trash. 'Tis something, nothing, 'twas mine, 'tis his, has been slave to thousands. But he that filches steals from me my good name, robs me of that which not enriches him, and makes me poor indeed. So he says, listen, he says, like, people that steal physical items from you, that's not such a big deal, right? You can just get a new one. But people who ruin your reputation, that's extra bad. Notice, by the way, Othello still has not said anything about Cassio and Desdemona. He's just talking in general. In life, it's a bad idea to get a bad reputation. He doesn't want to say anything bad about a person, because that's really dangerous. But again, he's building. He's talking about giving somebody a bad name. And who? Cassio? Who's got the bad name? What's going on? So every time he says something, it gets Othello interested. By heaven, I'll know thy thoughts. He says, you cannot, if my heart were in your hand, nor shall not while it is in my custody, right? He says, listen, my thoughts do not belong to you. Even if you were going to kill me, you can't force me to say what I'm thinking. Again, building that tension. Like Shakespeare builds tension in the play, Iago builds tension with Othello. Iago is a metaphor for Shakespeare. And also, Iago is a metaphor for chaos. So things can be metaphors for more than one thing. And then Iago gets to the point a little closer. He says, oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on. The green-eyed monster, jealousy, it's a metaphor, right? Jealousy is like a monster, that it eats you and also makes fun of you. It mocks you. It destroys you. The cuckold, that's a person whose wife is cheating on him. The cuckold lives in bliss, who's certain of his face, loves not his wronger. But oh, what damned minutes tell he o'er, who dotes yet doubts, suspects yet strongly loves. So he says, listen, to be cheated on isn't so bad. He says, what's really bad, or to get cheated on but not know. Like, if someone's cheating on you, you don't know, you're happy. So maybe that's better for you. And he says, but even if someone's cheating on you and you do know, at least you're certain. He says the real danger is when you're not sure and you spend all your time wondering, are they cheating on me? Are they not? Again, notice Iago has not yet used the word Desdemona or Cassio. He's just talking about people in general. He's talking about life everywhere, and he hasn't yet gotten to the focus. He continues to build tension, so we'll pick this up in the next video.